Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India's External Affairs Minister to host his British counterpart for talks. It's the first visit of its kind to New Delhi after Labour came to power in the UK. ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings kick off in Laos. Foreign ministers of India and China to attend ASEAN East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum talks. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to address joint session of US legislature. Families of Israeli hostages hold a protest in Washington, D.C. to urge him to seal a hostage deal with Hamas. And Kenya's President William Ruto inducts 4 members of the main opposition party into his cabinet after nationwide protests. British Foreign Secretary David Lammy is in India on a 2-day visit. It's the first high-level visit by a British minister to India after the installation of a new Labour government there. The British High Commission in New Delhi said the visit will push for a reset of the UK-India partnership by reinforcing the UK's commitment to securing a bilateral free trade agreement. Lammy is expected to meet India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar. He will head for the ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings in Laos's capital, Vientiane. Jaishankar himself will be travelling to Laos. The ASEAN foreign ministers' meetings kicked off in Laos on Wednesday. Alongside India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar, China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi will be in attendance at the meetings starting on 25th July. Heavy police and armed security presence was seen ahead of the arrival of foreign ministers and senior officials for the meetings. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar will make back-to-back visits to Laos and Japan to attend meetings related to the ASEAN and Quad. The minister will travel to Vientiane, capital of Laos, from 25th to the 27th of July to take part in foreign ministers' meetings under the ASEAN framework. It includes the ASEAN-India, East Asia Summit and ASEAN Regional Forum meetings. 2024 marks a decade of India's Act East policy, which was announced at the 9th East Asia Summit in 2014. Minister Jaishankar will travel to Japan from 28th to 30th July to take part in a meeting of the Quad foreign ministers in Tokyo on the 29th, along with his counterparts from Australia, Japan and the United States. Tanzania's Speaker and Inter-Parliamentary Union's President Tulia Ackson called on India's Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar in New Delhi on Wednesday. The Vice President of India also happens to be the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, the upper chamber of India's parliament. They held discussions on India-Tanzania relations and significance of parliamentary exchanges for deepening relationship between the two countries. The third meeting of the India-Russia Intergovernmental Commission on Military and Military Technical Cooperation was held in New Delhi. The discussions focused on strengthening ongoing defense engagements and new initiatives under a bilateral defense cooperation mechanism. Russia accused European leaders of trying to frighten people with what it said were invented threats that Russia and China allegedly pose to the continent. European leaders have repeatedly warned that Moscow could expand its military operation in Ukraine to other European countries. But Russia denied such intentions. It said France's refusal to accredit Russian journalists to cover the Paris Olympics on security grounds is a sign of paranoia. Ukraine's Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba is in China till Thursday. On Tuesday, he met with China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi and discussed about ways to achieve a quote-unquote fair peace in the war against Russia. Kuleba's visit is the first by a high-ranking Ukrainian official since Russia's first full-scale February 2002 invasion. China, the world's second-largest economy, has not publicly condemned Russia for the escalation. In sharp contrast to days of violent clashes, Bangladesh witnessed relative calm on Wednesday. People were out in its capital, Dhaka. Telecommunication services were partially restored, although internet connection was slow and social media remained suspended. Trade-related activities resumed at the Bangladesh border on Wednesday. Truck drivers from the neighboring countries of Bhutan and Nepal said the reopening of the border was a relief for them as the closure had led to losses. Kenya's President William Ruto on Wednesday nominated 4 members of the main opposition party to a new broad-based cabinet that he promised in response to nationwide protests. The opposition members, including the pick to lead the finance ministry, John Mbadi Ngongo, are allies of opposition leader Raila Odinga, whom Ruto defeated in the 2022 election. Kenya's President William Ruto said he would be proposing amendments to anti-corruption and public procurement laws.
I will be proposing amendments to the Evidence Act and the Criminal Procedure Code, among other necessary legislative amendments to all statutes relating to corruption, to expedite investigations and prosecution of corruption and economic crimes cases, and provide for their conclusion within 6 months.
Earlier on Tuesday, Kenya's police fired tear gas to prevent scuffles between groups of protesters and government supporters in the capital, Nairobi, as youth-led demonstrations against alleged corruption and misgovernance dragged into their 6th week. The protests, which began in opposition to tax hikes and climaxed in the storming of the country's parliament, have continued despite President William Ruto abandoning the $2.7 billion finance bill in June. At the time, he also fired almost all of his cabinet, although he retained many holdovers from the prior administration when he named part of his new lineup last Friday. And now take a look at what else is making news in India. The Indian Navy evacuated a critically injured Chinese mariner from a vessel nearly 370 kilometers from Mumbai on Wednesday. The mariner was airlifted from the vessel and transported back to land. It followed a distress call received by the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center in Mumbai on Tuesday, which reported a heavy blood loss from a critical injury to a 51-year-old mariner who urgently needed evacuation. Lieutenant Governor of Jammu and Kashmir Manoj Sinha unveiled the logo, website and teaser of the inaugural edition of Kashmir Marathon, which will be held on the 20th of October in Srinagar. The marathon follows a series of world-class events organized in Jammu and Kashmir, including an F4 event and a tourism development conclave in Srinagar and the Sunburn Music Festival in Jammu. India's security forces arrested a left-wing extremist during a special operation in the central Indian state of Chhattisgarh. The suspect had allegedly planted explosives during a legislative election and killing villagers. The 46th session of UNESCO's World Heritage Committee is taking place in India's capital, New Delhi. The venue of the meeting is attracting delegates who look forward to taking a bit of India back with them. Anil Thomas reports.
India hosts the 46th session of the World Heritage Committee from July 21st to 31st. Parallel to the plenary session being held at the main hall of the Bharat Mandapam, an Incredible India exhibition has been set up depicting heritage, landmarks and cultural legacy of the country. Scale models of forts associated with Maratha King Chhatrapati Shivaji, colourful stalls of various states and live displays of craftsmanship were part of the thematic pavilion at the World Heritage Committee meeting venue to display the spirit of Incredible India.
On one end, you see the forts of Maharashtra, which exhibit our rich heritage in fortifications and how Shivaji Maharaj and the Marathas have established their legacy in the country. And on the other, you see the culture of Rajasthan, the intangible elements of Kolkata. So it's a mixture of both tangible and intangible because that's what UNESCO's theme is all made of.
The gateway leads to a wide open space where different aspects of India's heritage have been displayed, from replicas of monumental sites. Visitors can also see live demonstration of Indian craftsmanship.
It's very amazing to see such diverse range of culture of India, including traditional crafts, music and cuisines. So I really enjoyed visiting every corner of exhibition.
The special exhibition highlights India's rich cultural heritage, age-old civilization, geographical diversity and tourism destination, along with modern developments in the field of information technology and infrastructure. Anil Thomas for DD India from New Delhi.
And still to come on DD India Live. At least 18 people killed in Nepal plane crash. And strong winds and heavy rains hit Taiwan as the island braces itself for a powerful typhoon.
This is the coastal city of Puri, home to Lord Jagannath.
Lord Jagannath is the Supreme Lord. As his name clearly denotes, Jagatanatha, Lord of the universe.
It is a treasury of more than 1500 years.
This is the story of Jagannath Temple and its Ratan Bhandar.
You're watching DD India Live. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu will address a joint session of the US legislature soon. The longtime Israeli leader will speak to a bipartisan group of lawmakers. He is the first foreign leader to deliver the address for a fourth time. British leader Winston Churchill addressed the US legislature on 3 occasions. Netanyahu landed in Washington, D.C. on Monday, the day after Biden announced that he was quitting the presidential race. Netanyahu was invited by Speaker Mike Johnson. And Caroline Malone joins us from Washington, D.C. for more. Caroline, why are some U.S. lawmakers planning to boycott Netanyahu's address?
Well, there is a bit of a division within Congress over this visit. Netanyahu was invited by Mike Johnson. He is the House Speaker. He's a Republican, and he very much represents the classic Republican view, which is very much in support of the US continuing to help Israel in its campaign against Hamas. But it is divided within Congress, particularly in the House, and it's not exactly the view that a lot of Democrats hold. They are increasingly concerned about the humanitarian, the death toll on Palestinians in Gaza, and very much would rather see a peace deal, a ceasefire at this point. And that's made it very difficult for President Biden, also a Democrat, because that's something that he's increasingly been talking about publicly. In the beginning, after the October 7th attack, Biden was all in support for Israel. But I think in the recent months, we've seen a little bit of a change in his tone, a little bit more caution, especially when it comes to Israel's continued attacks in Gaza and the impact on people there. Really trying to push Netanyahu, really trying to push the Israeli government to get to some kind of peace deal with Hamas, and that's become increasingly challenging. So I think we're going to see that not just in Congress, but we're also going to see it outside, because we understand there are planned protests that will be happening outside the capital as Netanyahu is making his address around the early afternoon here on Wednesday. And those are groups that, again, are against Israel's action. They are particularly concerned about the impact on Palestinians. They want to see a peace deal, but crucially, they want to see the number of Palestinians who are dying to stop at this point, and the US to do what it can to support the end of the violence.
Indeed. Also, Caroline, what can you tell us about Netanyahu's proposed meetings with both Biden and Trump?
Yeah, so Netanyahu's fitting in a lot in his trip here. He's going to be having meetings over Wednesday and Thursday, and we are expecting that he will be meeting with President Biden in the White House on Thursday. He's also planning to meet Trump. He is planning to travel across the US to go and meet Trump, who, of course, is the likely, or now officially, the Republican nominee for president for their party. And then also to meet with Kamala Harris. Now, normally Kamala Harris, as the vice president right now, would be the one to preside over this joint session in Congress. She's not doing that. She has other plans. She has a different event scheduled. You know, some are reading into that she doesn't want to be present in the room when Netanyahu is speaking because of her views on the current situation with Israel and Hamas. But certainly she will be meeting with Netanyahu behind closed doors, which is in a meeting that's incredibly important because, as we know, Kamala Harris is also the highly likely Democratic candidate to be president this year as well. And so her views and her relationship with Netanyahu are just as important, really, as Trump's. And also overall, though, really, for Biden and Netanyahu to have this closed-door meeting at this time, we know Biden's stepping down, and so he's got, about 6 months left of his presidency. There is still potential for the US to use what it can, its leverage, to force Israel, to force Netanyahu to come to a peace deal before Biden actually ends his term in the White House.
Caroline, thank you. Appreciate it. Caroline Malone there reporting from Washington, D.C. Now, an Israeli negotiation team is due in Egypt's capital, Cairo, on Thursday to resume talks that would include hostages being released in return for Palestinian prisoners held in Israeli jails. Months of efforts mediated by Egypt and Qatar to reach a ceasefire gained momentum in recent weeks under a proposal outlined by US President Joe Biden in the month of May. Meanwhile, Israel's military conducted new raids in Gaza on Wednesday, hours before Netanyahu is due to address US lawmakers. Israel's military, which wants to eliminate Islamist militant group Hamas, said that it had been operating in areas from where Hamas cadres had been able to fire rockets into Israel and attack Israeli troops. Israel's military also carried out airstrikes in central and northern Gaza, ostensibly to prevent Hamas from regrouping. Netanyahu, who is in the US, told families of hostages held in Gaza that a deal that would secure their release could be near. 18 people have died in a plane crash in Nepal. The Saurya Airlines aircraft was on its way from Kathmandu to Pokhara. While taking off, it fell into a ditch near a runway of the Tribhuvan International Airport and immediately caught fire. According to the Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal, 18 of the 19 people on board died. All the dead bodies were taken to the Tribhuvan University Teaching Hospital. Captain Manish Ratna Shakya, who was rescued, is currently receiving treatment at a hospital. The plane was going to Pokhara with employees and technicians to repair a Saurya Airlines aircraft. Domestic flights were affected at the airport because of the incident. Nepal's Prime Minister KP Sharma Oli and Home Minister Ramesh Lekhak reached the Kathmandu airport. The Prime Minister expressed sorrow over the deaths. Taiwan is bracing itself for a powerful typhoon, which is the strongest storm to hit the island in 8 years. Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
Here in Hong Kong, we are experiencing very hot weather as we feel the effects of Typhoon Gamy. But over in Taiwan, it's a very different picture as people there brace themselves for this very powerful typhoon. It's already bringing heavy rain and strong winds, and forecasters say that winds will strengthen further. They also say that rainfall could reach up to 1,800 millimeters due to this typhoon. But Taiwan has been struck by many typhoons, and so it is well versed in making the necessary preparations. Authorities have suspended school, they've given people the day off work, they've closed financial markets. Some 29,000 soldiers are on standby, and some 4,000 people have been evacuated from remote mountainous areas which are at risk of landslides because of the expected torrential rain. Now, here in Hong Kong, we are expected to feel the effects of the strong winds on Thursday and Friday, but as this typhoon moves across the Taiwan Strait, it's expected to hit China's Fujian province on Thursday, and that is an area that has been experiencing weeks of extreme heavy rain and deadly landslides. In Hong Kong, Laura Westbrook reporting for DD India.
India's squad for Paris 2024 is set. With 117 athletes, the team includes debutants, past medal winners and a wide range of ages. Explore state-wise representation and more in this analysis by DD India's Narayan Singh, who is in Paris.
An in-depth look at India's squad for the Paris Olympics 2024, covering everything from the debutants, past medal winners, youngest and oldest athletes state-wise, and more. Indian contingent consists of 117 athletes at the Paris Olympics, which will start from July 26. Here, we have brought you the breakdown of the Indian contingent and present the most interesting facts and trivia about it. This is India's second largest contingent in an Olympic Games after Tokyo 2020, in which 121 athletes participated. The biggest miss is Indian women's hockey team, who failed to qualify for Paris 2024. And over 61% of the Indian contingent will be making the Olympic debut in Paris, and that is 72 athletes. The Indian contingent for the Paris Olympics includes 70 men and 47 women athletes. Athletics will be the biggest contingent, consisting of 29 athletes, including 2 reserves from India to the Paris Olympics, followed by the event of shooting, where 21 athletes are. This is the first time Indian shooters have clinched quota in each category, and it is the largest ever shooting contingent from India. Meanwhile, Haryana had the biggest representation at the Paris Olympics with 24 athletes from the states, which is followed by states like Punjab, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Kerala and Maharashtra. And in all, 117 Indian athletes will take part in 16 disciplines at the Paris Olympics. The Indian contingent includes 5 former medal winners: Neeraj Chopra, Mirabai Chanu in weightlifting, PV Sindhu in badminton, and Lavlina Borgohain in boxing, and along with the men's hockey team. Meanwhile, Parul Chaudhary and Manu Bhaker are only the 2 Indians who will take part in more than one individual event at the Paris Olympics.
Now, what's the first thing that comes to your mind when I say the word sea? An endless body of water, right? But have you heard of a sea that covers only a 6 square kilometer area? The Karen in Croatia is aiming to be the world's smallest sea. It's technically just a deep bay along Croatia's Adriatic coast. The Karinska Riviera tourist attraction plans to apply to the Guinness World Records with evidence suggesting that the Karin Sea is smaller than Turkey's Sea of Marmara. The Sea of Marmara is the smallest true sea in the world. It is 280 kilometers long and 80 kilometers wide. An official listing with Guinness World Records could provide a strong basis for ensuring the highest level of protection for the world's smallest sea. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India Live. You can get all the latest news and updates on the DD India mobile app. It's available on Android and iOS platforms. You can scan the QR code on the screen to download it. And let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. All of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.